just popping back down to Southorpe Meadow on an early Sunday morning. This is definitely, for me in 2019, this is the best site that I found in this area. It's the first year that I've actually explored it, and it still absolutely fascinates me. I still cannot make sense of the flowers that are here, and I've come back down just to have a closer look at some of these hybrid Southern Marsh, common spotted, early Marsh, and see if there are a few clues that I might have missed that might try and make sense of it all. But it's a lovely place to be at on a quiet Sunday morning, so I'm going to have a wander around and see if anything's changed since the last time I was over here. Now this pale form of Southern Marsh orchid doesn't really have typical Southern Marsh orchid flower patterns on it. You'd think there was some common spotted in there, but again, plain coloured leaves, so on the face of it, it's a standard Southern Marsh orchid, but it doesn't look right to me. But yeah, you'd probably have to chalk that one up as just a variant of Southern Marsh orchid, really. There's no evidence to suggest anything else really, apart from the slightly unusual flower colouring, maybe, and the patterns on the flowers, maybe. Another of these nice pale Southern Marsh orchids, identical to the last one. There's a few of these, and they are just pure Southern Marsh orchid. There's absolutely no markings on them to suggest otherwise in terms of the leaves. It's just a pretty colour, and the non-standard dark purple colour, it's just a Southern Marsh orchid variation, I believe. Now that one, to me, is probably a Southern Marsh orchid hybrid with a common spotted. It is a common spotted rootstock with spotted leaves, and I think the background colour of the flowers and the dots on the throat and the white on the throat makes it Southern Marsh as well. So I think that is for me a definite hybrid between the Southern Marsh and the common spotted. No hybrids, no hybridization in this one. It's a classic, very pale, very pretty form of the Southern Marsh orchid. That's a very nice one. Example here of what you're up against when you're trying to work out hybrids from non-hybrids. These two plants I'm going to show you now are about 12 inches apart. This is a pure Southern Marsh orchid, no markings at all on the leaves. Again, a very, very nice colour, Southern Marsh orchid. Just bear with me, we're going to swing right here. A not hugely dissimilar plant with not hugely dissimilar flowers, but this one has spots all over the leaves and is a hybrid. Common spotted and Southern Marsh. You can see lines coming down the flowers. If you look on the throat of the flowers, there's vertical lines. You've almost got those classic two eyes that you get on the majority of common spotted orchid flowers. You've got lines on that one. If we swing back, you haven't really got the lines on these. It's more just spots. But there isn't much difference. It's a hell of a game trying to differentiate. But on leaf colour, this one is a very, very nice pale Southern Marsh. It's actually quite a relief to find the occasional pure common spotted orchid. No complications, no hybridization, very clear faces on the flowers and those flower shapes as well, where you've got the three distinct clear flower lobes. Just a classic common spotted orchid. Still plenty of these narrow flower forms. Still plain leaves. I don't know. Definitely Southern Marsh in there. Is there early Marsh in there? You've got to wonder why these flowers look the way they do. They're not all like this. But it's not a young plant, as some people have suggested, and the flowers just haven't unfurled yet. These are quite mature plants, and they're not going to flatten out like most Southern Marsh orchid flowers do. There's definitely something going on here. It probably wins the prize as the first near as damn it fully open pyramidal orchid I've seen this season. Now, what I said any day of the week, that's probably common spotted, but it's not. It's not, because there's no spots on the leaves at all, and on the face of it you'd say it was a Southern Marsh orchid, but I can't really buy that. That is very strongly influenced with those lines on the flowers by common spotted, but there's no spots on those leaves at all, which is just another bizarre, not quite right orchid combination. Very nice common spotted, lovely markings. Flower shape common spotted, the two circular eyes and shapes on the flowers, classic common spotted. Absolutely no markings whatsoever on the leaves. They look more classic marsh orchid leaves, so you know, again another weird one, but you'd have to say that's somehow a Southern Marsh common spotted hybrid. There are just about a few spots on the central lobe, but it's dominated in terms of the flower by common spotted, but not in terms of the leaf stock. Strange. Okay, this was the plant that I was looking for, and really the one that set the ball rolling the last two times that I've come here. This is one of these classic Southorpe Meadow narrow flowered Southern Marsh orchids, where you look at the flowers and you think absolute classic early Marsh orchid influence. It's the only orchid that really does this with the folding back of what should be a flat faced flower. Now, some people have suggested these are just young plants that haven't fully opened yet. Well, this one is going over, so that disproves that theory. This has stayed true to form all the way through its life. But this one is the one that particularly interests me, because it just clears some of the foliage down the bottom. If we drop down, I hope you can just about make that out. Let me just try and focus this a bit better. There you go. Those leaves, there may only be faint spots, but there are spots on the leaves. Absolutely, definitely spots on the leaves down here. So on the face of it, you have Southern Marsh orchid, early Marsh orchid for the flower shape, and common spotted orchid for the rootstock. You have a three-way hybrid there, which is pretty amazing. It's not unknown, but I suggest it's quite rare. And I think this flower in particular kind of proves that case for me. Bizarre and wonderful. It's a very, very nice common spotted orchid. Really, really nice markings on that one. No messing, straightforward common spotted orchid, a real gem. as far as common spotties go, they don't get much better than that one. Superbly marked plant. Well, there you go, Southorpe Meadow again, wonderful place. Just coming to its finale now, really. Most 50% of the flowers are now browning off and disappearing, but I shall certainly be back here next June, probably still trying to make sense and probably still failing to make sense of what we have here. Yeah, what has today concluded? Well, certainly there are hybrids here, Southern Marsh, common spotted hybrids. The two of them are mixing, as they do. It's a very common hybrid form in the orchid world, and there are plenty of those here. There's still no early Marsh orchid here, but I have no other explanation, and no one else has any other explanation for those very narrow leaved forms of Southern Marsh. Only the early Marsh has that flower shape, and it's impossible to consider that the early Marsh orchid isn't involved in those plants somehow. There are no early Marsh orchids here. This is the third time I've been here, and I've searched it pretty thoroughly today. There's no sign of early Marsh or former early Marsh orchids here, but that doesn't really mean anything, because they may well have been here 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Enough for them to have cross-pollinated with the other species. They don't need to be present now. That plant we looked at most recently really is the classic one for me. That's got three very clear elements of three very clearly different plants, and I think my own view is it's a hybrid between Southern Marsh and a common spotted that has in turn then cross-pollinated with an early Marsh orchid. But you know, we'll never prove what it is 100%, and it's just a fascinating field of plants, and you can come here and study every variation that you can possibly imagine, and plenty that you can't, and still not make sense of them all. But that's it. I probably won't be coming back here this year. I can't make sense of it all, but an absolutely brilliant site, and I'll definitely be back in June 2020.